Welcome, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're tuning in from. So glad that you're here. My name is Dayal, and I'm here with Kishore Chandra and Achyuta Gopi. This is Spirit Matters, your daily Bhakti Center podcast. Thank you for everyone for being here. How are we doing this morning?
Doing great. Happy to be here.
Kishore's doing great. Happy to be here. Achyuta?
I'm good. Super happy to be here.
She one-upped you on the happiness,
She
Kishore.
did. She did.
How do you feel about that?
I guess I'm not that happy to be here. I guess the truth is more happy.
Kishore's like, actually, I'm realizing how unhappy I am.
I'm just a medium level of happy.
Just immediate. How you doing? Mediocre. We were starting to yesterday. Kishore was coming off of his juice fast, and we're talking about simplifying things in order to dive more deeply into our lives. And there was something I was like, "There's something I want to say." I didn't get into it, and I have a vague memory of what it was that I wanted to say. But I wanted maybe we can jog our memory a little bit. And we started to jog our memory in the pregame show, and I was like, "No, let's start the show, and we can talk about that in the actual show." So we were talking about. We're talking about juice fasts and Dr. Bronner labels. And Achyuta, you said something really beautiful at the end. You were really saying something beautiful at the end. Do you remember what you said?
Yeah,
Anybody remember what
I
you
was
said?
talking about,
Put it in the chat.
I was talking about association and how
Association.
that once you are going through these deep things with each other, and these transformations with one another, it creates such a foundation which becomes unbreakable. It creates a sangha which is super strong, and I think much needed.
Yes. What were you saying, Kishore?
I was just saying yes. We got it. That's what we were talking about. I didn't think we were gonna get it, but we did it.
The thing, I guess the thing that I was the thing that was coming to my mind, and I'll just start speaking because that's what I normally do. Just like, let's see where this goes. What was coming to my mind was sort of this, the relationship that we have with our body and treating it like a body. Like we think, how are you feeling? I'm feeling tired. I'm feeling this, or I am this, whatever it might be. I am achy, or I am groggy, etc. And sort of being able to separate that out a little bit and experience that my body is going through that. And, we have so much of this philosophy in spiritual life sometimes that, we're not our body and we're not our mind, we're something divine. And therefore we kind of have to separate, and we can either neglect or, just try to find this way of like detaching ourselves from bodily physical experiences. And I was thinking it more in the terms of, I heard somebody say once, treat your body as if it belonged to someone that loved to you. Treat your body as if it belongs to someone you love. It was actually on the side of a Whole Foods building. They were trying to sell bread and cheese. But I did take that away. And thought, there's so many beautiful things you can take. Like we were in Vrindavan in February earlier this year, and Havi Prabhu, Elon Chester, is that his legal name? Who's like a huge like legend down there in Venezuela or in South America. And he was talking about how like he wrote all these love songs, but actually when he's on stage, he has these two big bright lights there that he sees are the eyes of God, and he's actually singing his songs to God. And there are so many things I did once, and I did this. This was a post a long time ago, and it was about codependency, and like codependency is this, that, and the other. And it was like, your needs come before mine. I can't be happy unless you're happy, and like all these codependent things. People were like, yeah, codependency. And then I remember Johnny V said, it's funny if you direct all those things towards God, they're perfect. And this idea of like evolving the way we think about things. And so there's so many things in the material world that if we put them in a spiritual context, so this idea of treat your body as if it belongs to someone you love, And I was thinking that they belong to Krishna, or they belong to higher power. They've been given to us, and these stewards. And it's like I have this relation. So it's like I'm not my body, I'm not my mind, but I have this relationship with my body. I have this relationship with my mind, and I'm almost like a caretaker. And so I was thinking about like the relationships we have with other people, and I was somehow moving into the space of the relationship that I have with my body, and caring for it as a vehicle in which I move through this life. That was coming up to my mind. I didn't have a point beyond that. I think I did have a point beyond that yesterday, but between now and the last 24 hours, that's as far as my memory got. So I'm offering that. I'm offering that to you both.
Well, I for one, I love it. And um I kind of like yours better than even my own realization on the topic, which recently has been, and by recent I mean past few years, has been to think about, and I'm really good at doing this with other people. I'm not so good with doing it with myself. And with other
Mm,
people, I'll tell them, because they'll think, how do I, the whole self-love thing seems a little bit abstract, and even more abstract for like bhakti practitioners, where there is this very distinct difference between who you are and what this body is. And there's such an emphasis on remembering what you are beyond just this one body, this one lifetime. So the self-love thing can kind of like be a bit of a mind-boggling concept. And I've told people, if you had a necklace and you offered it to the deities, how would you treat that necklace when you got it back? And
mm,
so many people, I'd put it on my altar. I would worship it, reverent, all kinds of things, And I'm saying, would you ever say, oh, this necklace is missing a stone. It's completely useless. It's super ugly. Like you just got to throw it away. And they're like, no, I mean, God wore that necklace. I'd never say, even if it was missing a
mm,
stone, put it on the side, do something with it, put it in a frame, do something. But they'd never just kind of like disregard it. And I was saying, now, what if we thought about ourselves that way?
mm,
Krishna's been residing right here. Krishna's been working through us, using us in so many different capacities. Even if we think it was for a limited time, even if we think, oh, Krishna was using me before, but now I don't feel that connection anymore. Great, okay. When you retire the jewelry of the deities, though, and the paraphernalia of these deities, when it's spiritually surcharged, we never forget that. And so I'm really good at helping other people remember that. And then, but when it comes down to me, I fall back into the same patterns. So I really
mm,
like what you said as a in tandem reminder, like treat this body like it belongs to somebody you love, because it does. There are
mm,
times when Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would confront devotees. It was one devotee, and he was a Goswami. So time honored saint, right? Time honored saint. And he had a skin disease that got so bad that he decided, he's like, I can't live like this anymore. I have to give up my life. So he had planned to go to a huge festival and crush himself under one of the carts in the festival. And when he gets there, Lord Chaitanya goes, and he hasn't said anything to Lord Chaitanya at all. But Lord Chaitanya goes, and the first thing he says to him is, he says, what you're contemplating is criminal. And now he's kind of like looking like, what are we saying? It's the beginning of a conversation, not like, hi, how are you? It's like if I walked up to you one day and was like, Doyle, feel like what you're contemplating is the wrong way to go. And you're like, huh?
not the normal
So now,
pickup line.
right. So now he's thinking, he's like, well, what's happening? And he's saying, he's like, you're contemplating giving up something that doesn't even belong to you. Your life is mine. Your body is mine. I've claimed you with all of my love and affection. All of this belongs to me. Even the suffering. How can you think of deciding that that's it? I'm gonna give up the whole thing, call mulligan on it, do over, like start over again, try and do it again with something else. And this is God. So that always kind of reminded me, especially when times got hardest, that my friend is saying, no, but you belong to me. My parents made a huge deal of making sure that I belonged to Govinda. And so now sometimes I want to remind myself to treat me like I belong to somebody I love, because I do. And if I'm not doing that, then it's actually an offensive criminal activity. Like, it's a criminal activity for you to mistreat yourself. Like, what a realization.
What are you in for? Self-mistreatment. 20 years.
There's a lot of verses in the Bhagavatam that speak about how the attainment of this human body is actually quite rare. And I'm thinking of the specific verse, Nrideham adyam sulabam sudurlabam, and it's a really beautiful verse, and it says that the human body is very rare to attain in this lifetime, and that it should be, and it's compared to a boat. And it says that the boat being guided by the guru and by the winds of the instructions of the scriptures, it's guided towards spiritual realization. But it ends this verse by saying that the person who does not use this human body and utilize the human body for that attainment becomes the killer of his own soul. And I really, really love that, because it's like when we have this human body and we have to take care of it. I love what you're saying, Dayal, about treating the body like it belongs to someone who we love, right? Is that what you said?
Nailed it.
Okay, got it. Good. And
we should get royalties from Whole Foods for this episode. Like every time we say that, there should be like a deposit in the account somewhere.
You know, I remember seeing that on the side of Whole Foods
in Bowery, right?
Yeah, I saw
Yeah.
that. I know exactly what you're talking about.
There was like a big block of cheese next to her.
Yeah. But it's really beautiful, because when we take that approach, we really start to shift the way in which we understand our relationship with the body. Because the body, I feel like, you know, from a physical perspective, a lot of people, just from being a yoga teacher, I can speak of this, a lot of people are really checked out from their body, like really checked out from like their body, like movement. And I'm not going to get too scientific here, but like, you know, when they say movement is medicine, like that's actually a real thing. That's not like a cute thing to say. That's like a real thing. Like movement makes your joints healthy. It makes you healthy. It like increases all these fluids in your body. We're not going to get into it, but it's actually a real thing. And I remember when I used to teach a lot in person, I would see like, wow, like, yeesh, you know, like there's a lot of people disconnected from their body. And that's why I think like having a physical practice, whether it's yoga or Pilates or like whatever it is you do, is so important, just to like get you back into your body. But I really love going back to this verse saying that like, okay, this human body is like meant for something. Like we're meant to do something with it. It's meant for self-realization. It's not just like there for us to kind of like have a crazy party and woohoo time. Because something about the body is that a lot, I think people as they get older realize this, that like what you do in your young years, like when you're young, you don't really realize like how it's going to affect you later, right? And then once you like cross the threshold of 30, you're like, oh, okay, like it's coming back for me. You know, and when I'm sure once you cross the threshold of 40, I haven't done that yet, but I'm sure it'll be like, oh God, okay, you're going to start to feel all those things. And it really it really puts into perspective. It's like, what am I doing with this body? You know, like how am I treating it, and what is the purpose? Like, where am I trying to go? And so this verse says that if we're not trying to go for that self-realization, where you become the killer of your own soul. And it's like, just thinking about from a physical perspective, how the body can become stagnant, right? Like it can become really stagnant. You just kind of like in this, what's that word? Sedentary lifestyle, that a lot of people have a sedentary lifestyle. And then imagine like everything just becoming covered and just like, you know, kind of feeling, what's that word I'm looking for? Like kind of feeling like, I don't know, just stagnant. Yeah, just like trying to think of a
Like
word that
apathetic.
Atrophy?
Yes,
Apathetic.
apathy. Yeah,
Apathy.
apathy. And that's what connects with like killer of your own soul. It's like you're not letting your soul reach its potential. It just becomes like apathy and cynicism and nihilism. You're just like, ugh, you know?
Yeah. I'm 37. I crossed the threshold of 30 a little while ago, and I'm gunning it like Thelma and Louise, just like we can keep going, ignoring the road signs. But I think that what you're both jogging me more about what was coming to my mind as I was thinking of this point, this idea of, and I think this is related to what you're talking about, the juice fast. Like when we eliminate certain things for our life and simplify, we're able to go more deeply into things. And so you're talking about like when you were on a juice cleanse, that you were able to kind of like, you were able to experience life a little bit more. Like when you had that kitchery, like you weren't watching your phone and you were smelling it and you were seeing it and you were absorbing it and you were like focused. And I was thinking that the sense of, we don't necessarily maybe have to fast or cleanse. There's different ways of doing that. Like we talk about like digital detoxes, or we do one like a japa cleanse where we're increasing our spiritual practice. But I was just thinking in terms of like, where do we go to check in with ourselves? And if we're partnering with our body and with our mind in order to, like you're saying, our body's meant for something, or this body, my life belongs to someone who loves me, that there's a supreme divine higher power that has claimed me and is guiding me and calling me back, calling me forward, lifting me up, then how am I checking in with these partners that I have? And where am I going to spend that time to listen, to tune in, to like, sometimes when I teach yoga, I say the number one mantra we have for our body is shut up, like we just like, it's like, I'm tired, I'm hungry, I'm achy, I'm whatever it is. And we just kind of like push that to the side, but then it always catches up with us. And so it's just like, for me, the takeaway was, where do I go to listen to myself? Doesn't mean that I always do everything that we've talked about this also, that I do everything that I tell myself, my body tells me, or my mind tells me, but like, where am I going to actually tune into that message of my body or my mind, of like what's going in deeply and not just on like the initial surface? Like if there's a need that's there, or there's something that's below the surface. And I think that we betray ourselves a lot when we don't set time aside for that. And then, but what happens is that the need doesn't go away. We just start to try to squeeze it out of other people unconsciously, rather than just like taking that time to kind of look and see where I'm at, like taking care of business at home so that I can show up in the world in a powerful and empowered way. And the takeaway for me was like, especially someone who's like always on the go, always connecting, always this and that. Like we've gotten to a place where it's tough. Like it's interesting you mentioned the sedentary lifestyle, and I think COVID and the pandemic has thrust so many of us into a sedentary lifestyle. But when you think about it, maybe physically, but not mentally, because we've physically been forced to stay inside, but mentally we're anywhere but home. We're on social media, we're watching a movie, we're at work, we're like anywhere but present. And so when you think about a sedentary lifestyle, like there is a value of like just being alone, just being present. As Thomas Merton is credited as saying, the cure for loneliness is solitude. And where do we go to spend solitude? Not just be alone. We think I'm lonely. Well, maybe that's because you haven't learned how to spend time with yourself. And I think that we learn so much when we do that. And when you were talking about fasting or japa cleanses or whatever it is, like, I think we learn so much when we become able to spend meaningful alone time with ourselves. And so that's what sort of I was sort of taking away. And that was the gist of that's everything I was thinking yesterday. Now it's all out there.
And I think that's a really genius point. And in the chat, like a lot of, comments are coming up, and it's like not to always just tell ourselves to shut up. I mean, we, and I was just kind of thinking about it, and I was like, yeah, you're right. 90% of my day, whether even if I'm engaged in some sort of meditation, I am doing it to not focus on all the other stuff. And then, the mind comes in with all these thoughts, and then you keep ushering them out. And all day you usher them out. And I remember, my gosh, had to be about 7, 8, 9 years ago now. And I kind of got into like Gabby Bernstein, and she was like, what are we sitting there actually discovering how many times a day we're afraid or in anxiety? And then actually pausing to say, okay, now what's actually making me feel uneasy? What's going on? My heart rate's picking up, it's sweating, like all these different reactions. But okay, what's going on? And now how do we get to the root of what's happening? And I realized that, especially as a spiritual person, I find myself neglecting that a lot more. I find myself checking into other things and convincing myself that that is higher spiritually or a moral higher ground, rather than this base instinct of like, oh, what's happening with my body? Like, what is happening with my emotions? Like, what's happening with my surroundings? What's happening? But we also then tend to forget that there aren't just like chakras from here on up, right? There's a whole bunch of chakras. There's chakras below us, even there's chakras above us, but those lower chakras are necessary. Those foundations are actually necessary, and they serve purpose. And I think that going on a juice fast and all of these things, just really bringing that attention back to, okay, wait, what is my body doing? What is my body telling me that I'm needing? And if my body is telling me that I consistently need 16 hours of sleep, why? Something's off. Like there's an imbalance. And actually looking at that, not to beat ourselves up, but to actually scientifically look at it in order to change it. So I kind of want to take that away, to really actually truly drop back in a mood of service. How can I serve this body so that it works better? Spiritually,
Mm,
mentally, emotionally, physically. How can I actually look at doing what I need to do for this body as service?
mm. Love it. Beautiful. We've hit our time here, and let's hear from Kimberly what takeaways you got. If anybody's got takeaways, you want to put them in the chat, and then we'll read them all out, and then we'll all share what we're taking away.
I like what Achuta said about how it's offensive. It's an offensive criminal activity when we mistreat ourselves. Um, our life belongs to someone who loves us, and we need to be the caretaker of our life, our body, our mind, our emotions, and make time to check in with ourselves and build a healthy relationship of service with our body.
Mm, beautiful. Thank you so much, Kimberly. Kristen, treat myself like somebody I love. Well, as also treat your body the way as if it belongs to someone who loves to you. That's the other way of putting it. Kishore, let's hear a takeaway. I think this would be a sweet way to also end our episodes. Also, we each go away and share what are we taking away.
I am taking away something that Achuta just said, which I think sums it up quite nicely, because she was talking about the chakras. And so the upper chakras are all like ethereal and spiritual and just like my spiritual, endeavors. And the lower chakras are all about like my survival and like my safety and my body and like the my needs and like who I am and what I need to do to feel purpose as an I in this world. And I feel like that's such an important part that is often neglected. Like, who am I? And like, what is this body that I am residing in? I think it's a really important takeaway to notice if we're neglecting that, and then trying to tap back into that by maybe just asking those questions, like, do I feel safe? How do I feel in this body? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful. What are you walking away with, Achuta?
Asking myself more times a day, do I feel safe? That's a big one.
That's a big one. That's a big one. Scary question sometimes. Kishore just triggered something for me that, well, the phrase that came to mind is that you can't leapfrog into transcendence. And it was inspired by Richard Rohr you're talking about these lower and higher chakras, and we just think like, oh, I got to be in this ethereal space of spirituality, and these other things don't matter, and overcome your lower chakras, etc. But he mentions that unless you formulate and build a healthy relationship with that, he calls it the first half of life, that material identity and container, and then realize its own limits through realization so that you can deconstruct it and move on. That's ultimately where you want to get, but you have to pass through that with maturity and realization, as opposed to just leapfrogging over it. It's one thing to say, I am not this body. It's another thing to build a material identity and recognize it, and then experience its limitations, and then be able to actually like move beyond it with realization is another thing. And so I was just thinking this whole concept of you can't leapfrog through transcendence. And that's just a meditation that came to my mind as you were speaking. Love you guys all so much. Thank you for being here. Thank you for our live audience. Thank you for those tuning in wherever you are. Please do us a favor, rate and review us on Apple Podcasts or wherever you're listening. It means a lot to us. Check out bhakticenter.org for all of the things that we got going on. Kishore and I are going to Mexico in a couple weeks. There's only like a couple spots left. There's been like a lot of signups the last couple weeks.
Yeah, there's literally like 2 spots left.
Yeah, so get it while you can. We'll see you guys all somewhere soon. Be safe. Take care. Bye-bye.